Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to It's Needed, the podcast where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined by the one and only, oh no, it's the Popo, my light-skinned wonder. What's up, AJ?
Not much, brother, not much.
How's your day going so far?
You know, it's a little cold here in Columbus.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, but I'll get by. It's no Cali weather.
I noticed it with the sniffles in your voice.
Oh, yeah, I'm all bad. All bad.
We're also joined tonight by Mr. Grandpa Juan, coming up to us from St. Louis, Missouri. What's going on, Grandpa?
You know, my arthritis is acting up a little bit, but we okay.
Yeah, it's a little cold, man. Throw a sweater on it. And we also have a special guest, and many of our listeners probably know him on Instagram as Mr. Officer Daniels himself. What's going on, Officer Daniels?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for being with us. I appreciate it. And I before we get into it, I got to start and tell you guys how I kind of officially talked to Officer Daniels, and he don't even know I was going to talk about this. So anyways, so the other night or a couple weeks ago or last week, whatever, he reposted one of our videos, which was pretty cool. And so we got to talking on the DM or whatever, and I was like, "Hey man, well, you interested in joining our podcast for an episode?" He was like, "Sure." So I'm like, "All right, cool. Let's do this." So I sent him my number and everything like that. So I'm chilling that night, kicking it. My wife went to bed. She puts the new baby to sleep. My boys are tucked in their bed. So I'm watching TV downstairs, and my phone is blowing up because, Officer Daniels, Mr. Celebrity Hollywood over here, since he reposted this, I'm getting everything now. I'm blowing up, baby. I told my wife, you can't even talk to me no more. I'm a celeb. I'm big time now, baby. I'm big time. Kiss my hand, please. So I'm blowing up right now. And so then I get a text message out of nowhere, and it says, "What are you wearing?" I'm like, "What am I wearing?" So my heart dropped, bro. I start getting scared. Like, okay, I know I ain't give my number to no female. I know that's just not my character. So I'm like, okay, that's scenario one out of the door. I'm like, that can't be some random female. So then I'm like, man, maybe it's my wife trying to test your boy right now. She upstairs. I think she sleep. You know what I mean? I think she sleep, but maybe she's trying to see, since I am a star now, she's like, let me see what he gonna do when they, talk about what you wear. So, but then I was like, nah, it ain't her number. So then I was like, should I text back? So I was facing a dilemma, fork in the road. I'm like, should I text back or should I not text back? So I'm like, let me just text back. I was like, who this? Who this? I had to bring the black out. I had to bring the black out of me real quick. Who this? so I did that. So then he was like, "It's Daniel." So I was like, "Oh shoot!" I was like, "Whoo!" I lived to see another day, y'all. I was scared in the mud. So then I was like, man, I felt like this was an episode of The Sixth Sense, bro. I was literally scared, bro. But I should have said, man, yeah, what I got on is my Batman drawers right now. So anyway, so that's how I kind of got to know Officer Daniels real quick. But we really appreciate having you on the podcast, man. How's it going over there for you?
I'm just happy you responded because I got worried that you were just going to block my number and never communicate.
I probably did. I probably should have. My wife she don't even know that story yet, but she'll probably know after the night.
She do now.
Yeah, I know. What's up with you, AJ? What's going on out there?
Not much, brother. Just trying to stay warm. Columbus ain't no joke. I'm about to hop on a plane and come your way. Your way.
If you don't quit complaining about that cold weather. Hey, no, we are low-key
What's
spoiled.
that?
I said, if you don't stop complaining about that cold weather out there.
Look, I don't see you out here.
You right. You're right. Hey, us Californians though, we do got kind of spoiled, man. Like, it'll be 70 degrees outside, and you'll see us with chinchilla jackets on and, complaining like it's freezing out here, bro. And then when I go to Disneyland, because I go to Disneyland with my family all the time, like, you'll see all these people coming out with shorts on, and it'd be freezing outside, and they got, like, shorts on, sandals. And I'm like, they ain't from California. They ain't from Cali.
Hey, I don't know if y'all caught on to that flex he just did or not, but he was like, we go to Disneyland all the time. Like, it's a weekend thing.
That's only because Daniel sends me the ticket, so that's how I go.
Weird flex, but okay.
What's new with you, Grandpa?
Not much. Actually, I went out to Ferguson Police Department today. I got to spend some time. There's an organization called Dogs on Duty, and they give back to a lot of the police departments with their canine officers. And so they actually donated some collars for some of the canine units. And so I got to go out there and photograph some of that and hang out with Officer Greg Kasem, who just retired from Ferguson PD. He's actually been with Ferguson his whole career. And so he's been there During all the rioting and stuff, he was on the front line. So it's just kind of awesome to mix around with some of the guys who have seen a lot of the stuff going on in law enforcement for a long time.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. That's super cool. And a lot of people don't know what goes what goes on behind the scenes of our jobs as well. And so really quick before I move forward, because we're going to get into an introduction of Officer Daniels, get to know him a little bit more. But I do actually want to pay our respects to some of our fallen officers in recent weeks. We had Officer Healer, or actually Deputy Healers from the Ventura County Sheriff's Department, lost his life in that active shooter in Thousand Oaks. So that was out here in California. Rough situation. And then we also have Officer Harai from Gardena Police Department, who lost his life in the motorcycle accident. And then I think it was just a couple days ago, which is Officer Jimenez from Chicago Police Department, who lost his life in that active shooter at the hospital. So this is a very real job that we do for our listeners, and it's dangerous, and and so I do want to pay our respects for those guys and their families. Every time I see those those text messages come out and show who's lost their life recently in the line of duty, is hard, especially having a family, a wife, and 3 kids and stuff like that. It gets hard. And for all of our listeners, currently to this date, right now we have 130 officers that have lost their line of duty this year. And so I know I just mentioned 3, but there's so many more that I definitely want to pay our respects to right now. And then I also want to pay our respects to the firefighters that are fighting all the fires out here in California. That's been, if you turn on the TV, as we all have, I'm sure you guys have seen it, it almost looks like a movie scene, a bad movie scene, where like a bomb just got dropped on the city. So I definitely want to give them a shout out for all the hard work they're doing. And then, as you guys know, because Breaking Barriers United is so focused on bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community, I also want to pay our respects to for those that have lost their lives to either at the hands of a police officer or anybody out there, just because it's not everybody's life. It does matter. And it does. It's serious. And, I know officers, we do a job that's very, very dangerous, but it doesn't lessen the value of another person's life if they've lost it, even if they're not a police officer. So I do want to pay our respects there. So, but on that note, guys, and just real quick, it's crazy. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this as a dad or anything, but so my son, for those of you guys that know, I tell you guys, my son all the time, he loves police officers, man. Like, that's all he wants to do is be a police officer all day, every day. Like, we did a birthday party for him this year, and we did like an academy thing where we had an academy and all of his buddies went through the academy. But yesterday we were talking, and he was in the room with my wife and I, and he was like, "Daddy, I don't want to be a police officer no more." And I was like, "Why not?" And I was like, I'm thinking he's just about to be like, "Oh, I want to go be a firefighter because, all police officers wish they were firefighters." But then so I was like, okay, he didn't say that. And then I was thinking he was going to say, "Oh, I want to be like Officer Daniels." So I was about to slap him in his face real quick. And then I thought he was going to say, "I want to be light skinned like AJ." And he didn't say that. So then, but what he did say, and what was crazy, and it really kind of brought me back to reality, is he said, "Daddy, I don't want to get killed." And so my wife was like, "Where'd you hear that from?" Because he's only 5. Kid, he's smart, but he's only 5. So I'm like, where did you hear that from? And so it just goes to show that, even the youngest are seeing what's going on TV and social media and stuff like that. And he doesn't want to become a police officer because he's afraid to get killed. So it's definitely a reality that we live in, but I don't want to continue this podcast on a somber note. So let's move forward, fellas. Daniels, man, tell us a little about yourself, man, where you come from, what's going on with you, what we can't know. He got all startled. I want to know about you, other than, you trying to figure out what I'm wearing.
Okay, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version because it's a long story. But, back in 2014, I was assigned to the high school when the Vine app came out, and all the kids were talking about Vine this, Vine that, and so I downloaded it just to be up and up on what the kids were into at the high school, and found myself laying in bed watching Vines till like 3-4 in the morning when I should be sleeping,
Do it for the Vine. Do it for the Vine.
Right? And, I found myself having like these favorite people that I'd like to watch, I never had like an intention to set out to do what I've done so far. It was kind of just, I was trying to be funny and something that was relatable to me and to, whoever it would enjoy it. And it caught on. And I didn't really realize what was taking place till I expanded onto like Facebook and Instagram. So, I started making some videos on Vine, and it was, gaining some traction, and I was getting comments from people, whether they meant it or not, that I was changing their perspective of law enforcement, or, I didn't even consider being a cop until I started watching your videos. And then when I went on to Instagram, there's obviously, you guys know, and I imagine most of your followers know, but there's a huge community of law enforcement or first responders that are on Instagram. And once I got there and I started growing there, I started getting, direct messages or snaps from cops, and they were sitting in their briefing room either before or after a shift, and they were watching my videos, and it was like a form of escapism for them. And that's when it kind of really hit me, and it gives me chills talking about it right now, is, what I was doing was providing something more than just a laugh. And so that's when I really kind of focused on, wanting to continue doing what I was doing, and then finding a place with humanizing the badge and doing more than just making videos, and for back of a better term, getting into communities and putting boots on the ground and doing stuff that way as well, and giving back and giving the people the opportunity who made me who I am, the ability to meet me and, work together and, do something with their community. So that's kind of like the short version of how I grew. I was never set out to be like the guy who makes cop videos. It just kind of happened.
Hey, so that's super cool, Daniel. So I didn't really know much about that or that story. And it's kind of funny. So I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, so AJ, Juan, and Daniels, you guys have all known each other for a little while now, right? So tell me how that relationship came to be.
Yeah, so that I was actually thinking that when you were just starting this. So, I met Juan 2016, November 2016. So it's been 2 years now, right, Juan?
Yep.
We did our, I wouldn't call it an event. What would you call it? It was a project out in St. Louis with our nonprofit. And then AJ was just a follower of mine to begin with, right? Weren't you? We were just Snapchat friends.
He was a groupie. He was just a groupie.
He was a groupie. That's what he is.
AJ was a straight groupie.
not in a bad way, but is that not how we met? You were.
Oh, that's it. Yep. We were on Snapchat, I think. Yep.
Yeah, and we became buddies, and we realized we were both going to be in Police Week back in
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And so we met up, and AJ got to come hang out with some other people from Humanizing the Badge, and formed a friendship with everybody. And our co-founder, Elizabeth, who fell in love with him and his background and what he does just on his own. And so she brought him on, and then, we've been traveling the world doing fun stuff ever since.
Yeah, we have.
No, I guess not the world. He's been traveling the world. I've just been traveling the country. So.
Hey.
Hey, so what Daniels left out, he left out that AJ used to wait for him to get off of work and stuff, and hey, Daniels, can I talk
outside his house.
Can I talk to you? Get your autograph?
I'll tell you what I'm wearing.
I promise. I promise. So that's cool, man. And it's so funny, man. And so like I always talk about, I played football a lot, and in the football world, I always say the football world is a small world. You know everybody, or somebody that's connected to somebody. And law enforcement is similar, but it even gets even smaller when you start finding people that are trying to do similar things that you're trying to do. And me just trying to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community, doing certain things like that. I actually came across Juan, and then again, long story short, went out to go see Juan, met AJ, and so it's just funny how everything connects. But the right people are together, you know what I mean? And I think that's what matters. And tell me a little bit more about Humanizing the Badge, if you don't mind. I want our listeners to know what that is as well.
Absolutely. So we're kind of a twofold organization. We have what we call Project Human and Community Development. And Juan was the one who set up the very first Project Human we ever did. It was in St. Louis, so shortly after the Ferguson shooting. And, Juan set up amazing things for us to do. We went and, we spoke to activists who were, I wouldn't say opposed to law enforcement, but they were. They definitely didn't feel like the Ferguson shooting was justified, and we had a chance to have open dialogue and sit down, and they got to see cops outside of uniform and hear their background and why they joined law enforcement or what drove them to be in law enforcement. We got to hear, things that we don't necessarily get to hear from the people, because those weren't the people cops typically deal with. They were just the people who want to see the community come together. And we got to hear their stories and why they were frustrated with what happened in Ferguson. We got to hear the things that weren't on the news. The news only showed what was happening from the people who were bussed in to riot, paid to be there. These were the people who were actually cooking for law enforcement and providing them with water and making sure that they were taken care of. And so, we got to hear things that weren't taking place. I had no idea that there was, community members who were upset about the shooting, but were taking care of their police officers, right? That's something that just it wasn't newsworthy because it doesn't sell articles or ad space, right? So it was a real eye-opener for everybody else. Go meet with, was the officer that you met with today, Juan, one of the guys we met with at the PD?
Yep.
I couldn't remember everybody's name, but, we met with some Ferguson officers who were part of the riots and got to hear their stories. And what was the football player's name that ran the church?
Oh, Aeneas Williams.
I know Aeneas Williams. Well, I don't know him, but I remember watching him play.
Yep. So
I was a group like AJ.
He's a pastor for this church and invited us into his church, and we spent the Sunday with everybody in his church community, and he recognized us while he was doing his thing, and it was really awesome. And so that really kind of set the precedent for what we wanted to do as community development and how we felt a good way for us to impact. And a lot of people within our organization have some kind of influence on social media. And so you get all these people together and you say, hey, we're going to be in this city. We want to work with you guys. And then people from all these departments in the area are like, hey, I want to do something, or hey, I'm a PIO. I would love to work with you guys, that sort of thing. And we just get together and we want to leave a good impression, and hopefully the department takes what we've implemented and continues to run with it. And okay, this is what worked for us. This is how we engage with our community. Look at all these people that showed up for this. Imagine if we continue to do this. The other side to humanizing the badge is mental health support for first responders and their families. So Mike the cop, who the other co-founder to HTB, is his father runs the mental health side of things, and he has people who are on call 24/7, and anybody can reach out to any one of our platforms and get in contact with somebody if they're struggling with something. And that's all free and confidential. And then he also puts on classes for mental health resilience, and those are all free of charge, unless he's teaching like a train the trainer kind of thing. Then obviously, he'll, there is some cost to that, but we try and raise enough funds to keep it to a very, very minimum. But he'll go train people so that they can have kind of like a peer support type thing within their department and have people who are there for their people.
Man, that's super cool. And it's just phenomenal. You guys are doing phenomenal work. And I actually learned a little bit more about humanizing the badge when I was out there with AJ and Juan, and that kind of leads us into the topic for the day's discussion is social media. And social media, it's a beautiful thing when it's for the right cause, but it can be a monster when it's not for the right cause. And so when we talk about social media and law enforcement, there's two sides of this. There's two sides, and and as police officers, we have a side of social media of where we're trying to learn how to use social media to benefit our profession. But then we also have the side of social media where sometimes something may capture us doing something that may not be right, or it is right, but it doesn't appear to be right. And so that's what I wanted to kind of talk about today as far as social media is concerned. And everybody that's, for our listeners that's listening into this podcast right now, the people we have on this call, AJ, Grandpa Juan, and Daniels, they actually have a huge presence on social media. And with that presence comes responsibility. By having tons of followers, that's a huge responsibility. So AJ, kind of tell me a little bit about the responsibility that you have and some of the things that you've done on social media. And for those of you guys that don't know, he's known as the dancing cop, and that's for a reason. So tell us how that came to be. You ain't ready to see me in the dance battle though. Let me back up. He's the dancing cop, but that's just because they ain't seen me and him dance off yet. So one of these days, I'm gonna go ahead and show y'all what's up. Show y'all this rhythm that's up in my bones. But go ahead, dancing cop.
So my first year on the department was about 6-7 years ago. I was involved in a shooting, and it made national news. It was on the front page of the local paper here. All the local news agencies here aired it, but they didn't get the truth out. It was like half of what really happened. So for those of you who don't know, when you're involved in a police officer shooting, there's an open investigation, so you can't release the facts, right? Because of the open investigation. So this went on for about 6 months. Finally, the union stepped in and they were like, you know what, this is like one-sided news. Like they're saying you did this when this really happened. So we kind of want to get some more of the story out there. So I ended up shooting 2 people through a door. So what they did is they took a watermelon, put on the other side of a door at the range and shot through it. And it kind of like opened some people's eyes, like, hey, this officer was in a bad situation. They still didn't release the exact reason why I was involved in the shooting. And it wasn't until a year later when I was justified, and the only news outlet that put anything out there was the local paper here, and it was on the 8th page, and it was an article probably 4 inches by 1. So it was super far back in the dispatch here. So it just kind of frustrated me that an officer can have a justified shooting and that they can latch onto that and pump out negativity for a year straight, and then once you're justified and the investigation deems the officer did a great job, that the only outlet that puts anything out there is a local paper 8 pages deep. So it kind of got me thinking. I was like, you know what, like I need to use social media as a platform to get some positivity out there. So that's kind of where I got started with mine, and I linked up with Daniels, and he made my platform about 1 inch big to 1 mile long because he's super famous like that. And Juan did the same thing. So, when I go out here and I dance with these kids and do whatnot, like that's why, like I want people to see like the human heart behind the badge.
And that's completely understandable. And tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but right now in law enforcement, it seems like there's a complete disconnect between people that have been in this profession for almost 30 years and then a lot of the newer guys that are coming in. There's a completely different disconnect. And when we start talking about social media, you have some guys that are like, oh, you guys shouldn't be doing any social media. You guys, just go out there and arrest some people. Why are you dancing and this and that? And then you have some of the officers that are like, no, this is my way of connecting with the community, which I understand completely. And so I want to touch on that because I think that's a really interesting topic that we're talking about right now. And I think social media is very beneficial for law enforcement when it's used the right way. AJ just gave us a prime example of that. But somebody sent me something the other day that really made sense to me. It's talking about the generation. So we all know about millennials, but this is one that I hadn't heard. It's called the Xennials or Zennials. The Zennials, I guess, is X is silent. I don't know. So I wasn't no English major, y'all. But it says, so it's for anybody that was born in 1977 and 87. It says the largest group after the baby boomers. And it says researchers say that this is one of the best generations because of their contribution to the family and society. They still possess the old school, work hard and survive independently attitude of Generation X while starting the tech savvy sophistication of millennials. Of all generations, Zennials understand our current world the most. They were the first to experience the birth of the internet and use it. They witnessed sports greatness firsthand from Michael Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, and from Mike Tyson to Manny Pacquiao. They played the first video games. They still knew how to play outside, and it continues to go on. And I was like, man, that describes me to a T, because I remember growing up, I still remember my parents using map books, calling people collect, going to use a payphone. You know what I mean? But then I still remember when MySpace was introduced, and then I start getting involved on that. So we understand both sides of it, to where now you have millennials that don't remember any of that. But then you have these old school people that are like, oh my goodness, you guys and your cell phones and all this stuff. And it kills me, because every time they're like, you know what? Why are these officers out there dancing? They just need to stop dancing and arrest people. They act like we're not arresting people. Like, that's what baffles me. Like, they just act like when I start my shift at 7:00 in the morning, I just start dancing, and I'm dancing until 7:00 at night. And I'm like, whoo, that was a long shift. I'm tired, bro.
That was a good dance off.
That was a good dance off. I ain't got no more Dougies in me tonight. I ain't got no more baby sharks in me tonight. That's an inside joke for some of y'all. But it kills me. Like, they just think that all we do is just dance, and that we're not doing our job. But like AJ was talking about, there's a reason and purpose of why we do it, and that's to connect with people. Juan, you actually have a big following as well. Have you experienced anything as far as social media is concerned, and how it's helped you to connect with the people of the community?
Well, first, I'm going to touch on what you said about the, why don't y'all go out and just start arresting people? It's the same thing, like whenever I see these comments about, certain police department takes off 500 pounds of weed, and people are like, weed? Why don't they go on get the hard stuff off the street? Why are they focusing on weed? And I made a comment on somebody's post, and I said, you get what you get. Like, if you stop a truck or a load that looks like it might be something, and you get weed, like, you don't know what you're always going to get. Right. And then I can hop on my soapbox and get on the associated level of violence, even with distribution or trafficking of marijuana. But I'm gonna stay off that soapbox tonight. All right, we're talking about social media, and what the important thing for me to always remember is people are watching. And for me, especially now that I'm in a school district, these kids are watching. And if you look at their social media, I mean, these are the cliche of the kids are our future. I know it's a cliche, but I say it all the time, because eventually we're going to be dead and gone. And there are going to be other people that are going to be in our positions running their social media pages, sharing information. Do we want to teach people to post hateful things like that's okay? Or do we want to teach them, that it's positive? The thing for me is so frustrating is I try to put positivity out there, but positivity isn't popular. It's the same thing with AJ shooting. If it's all negative stuff out there, you're pinning negative stuff on a police officer, people want to buy that paper. People want to watch that show. Yep, they're bad. I knew it. But if it exonerates him from whatever, accusations they're making, then either, they gotta eat it, swallow the pride, and they don't want to do that. So I want to make positivity popular again. I want people to be able to share positive messages, and those things go viral. Versus it's crazy. I'll make a straight up 1 minute film, and I mean film. I'll have like $10,000 worth of camera equipment that have people like in tears, but the person with the Motorola Razor flip phone, flipping the phone around, catching two 13-year-olds fighting, that thing will get 18 million views, and mine will get 900. The caveat to that is, to be honest, those 900 views, hopefully within that 900 views, one of those people saw that and said, I want to do that too.
Exactly. And you bring up a huge point, is making, positive news popular. And that's what I think I want to emphasize on this topic is, and especially for the naysayers about, using social media and why are we doing that? It's not going anywhere. And I don't care, what people want to say or why, police officers shouldn't do it or why they should. Social media is not going anywhere. As a school resource officer right now, I see it every single day. So why would we not want to be on the same platforms where our future is communicating on, as opposed to being away from it and just technically focusing on arresting people all the time? Because again, law enforcement and police work is about arresting people, but that's not the only thing we do. There's a lot more than we do than just arrest people. So, and you can also get information on social media as well. So there's so many benefits to being on social media, and I'm sure you've seen some of that as well, Daniels. What's some of the things that you've noticed being so influential on the social media platforms and how it's beneficial to law enforcement?
Well, everything you guys have said is exactly what I was going to say.
My bad.
No, it's okay. I mean,
we mind readers.
That, I think it's definitely inspired people who wouldn't normally have decided or wanted to pursue a career in law enforcement. And we're getting people who will definitely contribute to, their communities very well. I guess my biggest thing with social media, and I didn't mention this when I was talking about, why I do what I do, but it goes back to what you said. It's not going anywhere, and I love seeing departments getting involved and making videos, and as silly as the lip sync challenges and the other dance challenges that they get into, the departments are realizing that it's not going anywhere, and this is how our community engages. This is where they're at. This is where they're getting their information, and we need to be in front of them this way. And take social media and write your own stories, or somebody's going to write them for you, and they're not going to be the way you want them.
That's good.
So,
exactly. And I think the frustrating thing for me too is, as much as police officers, because every police officer I know, they always say, I'm a human too, and people treat me like I'm not a human. Yeah, we're human beings. And so human beings like to get involved in human things, which social media being one of them. And so when you try to say, oh, well, no, we shouldn't be involved in that, now you're actually contributing to that stereotype of we're not human anymore, because now you're basically separating yourself and acting as if you're not. And that's why you don't want to be involved in it. And I think that's what makes me so frustrated, is like, man, look, I can go out, and like I said this on a past episode, is, I don't go out and dance because my chief of police tells me I need to go out and dance with somebody. I go out there and dance because Ryan Tillman likes to dance. It is what it is. You know what I mean? And so I think those are the frustrating things that have happened to me, or I've experienced, when people complain about, officers doing things on social media. One of the other topics I wanted to bring up about social media is, when we talk about social media in the community and how members of the community use it, and that could be positive, but it could be negative. And I've experienced this firsthand, maybe kind of going back to what AJ says. I never forget, I was on a call one time, and I always talk about this situation when I do my presentations, but there was a guy who was under the influence of some narcotics, and he had just stabbed his dad with like a samurai sword. And so it was crazy. This dude was on, same look you had, AJ, is the same look I had when I got that call at 3 o'clock in the morning. One reason being because I was about to get off, and I was a little pissed off. When you're about to get off, you're like, oh, you feeling yourself like, man, I'm about to go home. It's been a long day. Like, I'm about to go home and kick it.
Betrayal.
You thinking about the apple pie in the refrigerator? Like, man, as soon as I get home, I'm about to tax that apple pie, bro.
Yeah, this day about to feel so good.
It's about to be, it's about to go down.
You thought you was going home.
You thought you were going home, and then you get hit up like, doo, 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 5 Paul 41. And you're like, oh, for real?
Yeah, we got a guy with a samurai sword.
A guy with a samurai sword. I'm like, what? Are we talking super ninjas? Super ninjas.
Like a real one?
Like a real one? So anyways, long story short, this dude, stabs his dad with a samurai sword or whatever. We go out there and we actually start, trying to take this guy into custody, and he wasn't responding to any of the use of force that we were giving him. We used batons, we used tasers. He just wasn't responding to it. And what I mean by he wasn't responding to it, he wasn't feeling it. And so it took about 6 or 7 of us to actually get this guy into custody once we got him into custody. And lo and behold, we didn't realize this, but about 200 yards away from us, maybe actually closer than that, the whole neighborhood is out, because it's like obviously 3 o'clock in the morning, it's loud, everything. And all they see is all these officers on top of this guy. They don't know the context of the story. All they see is officers on top of this guy. So then they go on to Facebook that night, and they're like, oh my goodness, it takes about 6 officers to take this guy into custody. This is ridiculous, yada, yada, yada. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, first of all, these guys didn't know that this guy almost murdered his dad. Second of all, they don't know this guy's under the influence of, who knows what. And third of all, I'm sure if they knew this dude was out, just stabbing folks with a samurai sword at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure they would have want the whole police force on this dude trying to take him into custody so he don't come to his house. They didn't know all that. So what they do is they post this video on the social media right away. The rest of the world sees it, and the rest of the world sees 6 police officers on top of this guy trying to take this guy into custody. And without them knowing any context, they automatically start to assume, oh, police brutality, here we go again. And now I'm actually the victim of it. Now nothing became of it, thank God, and everything was able to settle itself out. But that can be the disadvantages of social media sometimes, that oftentimes members of the community don't understand. Now, I will say this though, social media has caught bad officers in the wrong. So from that standpoint, it's good, because there's been times where police officers aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. You have an innocent bystander just passing by, see some shadiness going on. They capture this on tape. And then because of that video, that's what helped prosecute that officer. So that's wonderful. And so it's good and bad for both reasons. My biggest thing of what I'm trying to say right now is that anytime we see a video on anything on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, try to get some context to that situation before we start making assumptions. Because when we just start making assumptions off of what we see right off the bat, then we're going down a bad road, and you don't know who you're talking about. It could be a bad thing for that family of the innocent victim, or it could be a bad thing for that officer's family and that officer himself when nobody knows the context. So, you guys have anything to add on to that?
I use this example. If I was to walk up to Juan right now and smack him in the face, right? Pow! Someone was going to see that, pull their phone out and start recording. What the video is going to show is Juan turn into a grizzly bear and balling me up, right? So anyone who watches that video is going to think like, why did Juan do AJ like that, right? Like, why did Juan knock AJ out and then wake him back up and knock him out again, right? So a lot of times when we see videos that are law enforcement related, you have to keep in mind that that's what we're seeing, right? Like something, I would say 9 to 8 times out of 10 happened prior to that video being recorded, right? Because it takes time for you to pull your phone out, hit record and all of that. So just have patience, right? Like I know it's frustrating because on one end you do have a lot of officers who need to be held accountable, and there are situations that need to be on film to be put out there, right? But on the other hand, you have a lot of officers who are just doing their jobs, and because you put half of that video out there with the caption that you put on there, you're putting them through unnecessary stress.
And you know what? That same example is the same example I use in my presentations. I always talk about football, but how many times have we watched the NFL or college and somebody's out there, these cats, and I used to play corner, so I used to always, get into it with the receivers out there, because that was my job. My job was to get into their head. I'd be talking about their mama, talk about their girl, just whatever.
You want to talk about mamas?
You bringing moms into this? Oh yeah, I'm bringing mamas into this. Your mama and your mama's mama. So they start getting all mad, and so my goal is to get a rise out of that receiver, so that way he starts to make mistakes. And I have a friend, and he knows who he is. He's a college buddy of mine, and I'm gonna tell him to listen to this because he's gonna know who I'm talking about. But he used to do this really well. He was a receiver, and he would always talk about the corner. He would call him out a name. There's some derogatory stuff that if he said that on the street probably get him killed, but he would do it on purpose, not because he was a bad guy, but he's trying to get into his head. And so what ultimately happens is that person's going to respond, and that person usually slaps the dude in the helmet, pushes him down or whatever. So then the referee ends up throwing a flag, and they see the person that responded. And so they didn't see the person that started it, basically. And so you ask any referee, why'd you throw the flag on that second person? And they're like, because I saw the second person respond. I didn't see what the first person did. And that's almost the same thing that happens in law enforcement. You don't always see people call the police all the time, but phones don't start getting taken out until F-bombs start getting dropped, voices start getting loud, all this other stuff. That's when the cameras start to come out. It's not when you don't get the call for service, you don't get all the other stuff. So get in context. And I see you have some stuff. I see you shaking your heads, Daniels. Can you elaborate on any of that?
Well, I wanted to touch base, kind of wrap around to what we initially talked about with the big responsibility of being somebody on social media. And I hope I articulate this well enough for your listeners to understand. All the time I get, how do I say this? There are people who follow me, and they're just waiting for me to post something positive about a cop so that they can come and say, you only focus on the good. I don't ever see you calling out bad cops. And so there's this responsibility where people are, if you really wanted to humanize the badge, if you're all that you say you are, what people say you are, you would be, denouncing this officer's actions. It's all over the news. Why are you not talking about this? And it goes back to, what AJ said. I'm not saying I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, but, if turns out that they were in fact wrong, I have no issue calling them out. But we know that the cameras start afterwards. We know that there was something that probably led up to this contact, that this cop didn't just say, oh, look, there's Timmy. I've been wanting to beat him up for a long time now, So it's hard for me, and there's an expectation that, well, you better call out the bad cops. And there's just some reservation that people don't understand. And I would just hope that people would take that into consideration when saying, well, why are these guys not calling them out? If there's a clear case, like the case where the dude, I don't remember the victim's name, but the guy was clearly running away and
South Carolina.
Yep, and then dropped the taser.
Yep,
that whole thing.
Yeah.
I called that guy out immediately, and I had no issue doing that because it was so clear cut. I mean, there was no way in my mind that could possibly, be a justified shooting. So, but 99% of these videos that show up, or just, without naming names of people who are big on posting things about cops and being negative, is you're getting one side. And I want to wait till all the facts are out and then
I agree.
My piece about it.
I agree with that too, and that's so critical of what you just said, is wait until all the facts come out. Now, I will say from the standpoint of a civilian, I understand the frustration, because I remember being a civilian and not being a police officer, and it felt like there's just this brotherhood that, cops can do no wrong. And it oftentimes is portrayed like that. And I think, unfortunately, there's some truth to that in the past, where we don't want to see any of the truth that's gone on, or the negativity that has gone on in our profession. It exists. And I think the good thing about us Zennials coming up is we're not afraid to stand up and say, hey, look, if this what's wrong is wrong. And like you, Daniels, if I see something like that where the guy is clearly running away from him, I'll call him out all day. But here's the issue, and this is what I want our listeners to really, really understand. Is that because I am a police officer, and all my friends and family know me now, and they know that I haven't changed. I haven't changed because I became a police officer. I haven't changed. So this next statement I'm about to make, they know it's coming from the sincerity of my heart. I see things completely different now. And because I'm that person that has to lay hands on somebody sometimes, because I'm that person that has to pull my gun out sometimes, because I'm that person that's now getting criticized sometimes, I would pray that everybody would wait for the facts to come out. Because sometimes people do not understand the context. They don't understand the situation. And I'm telling you, you guys know my heart. All my friends and family know my heart. And the other officers that have gone through situation, AJ, you being one of them, you've been put in that situation. Please just let the facts come out. I know it's hard to resist, but if I'm hesitant to respond to something right away on social media, of something negative that happened, it's for a reason. It's not because I'm trying to defend this officer. It's not because I'm trying to stand with this brotherhood and not say that any officers are wrong or what they did. No, that's not the reason at all. I'm just trying to be fair about the situation, because I put myself in that situation. One of the worst things ever when I was a football player was, and I played quarterback at one time, the best thing about being a quarterback sometimes is when you win, everybody's on you. You show up to school, everybody, they throwing the rose petals out for you. Oh, Ryan, you the man. Everybody waving to you. Teachers make it. You had an F in the class. You might just slide by with a C all of a sudden. Like, oh, thanks, teach. Appreciate you. But then the moment you lose, that teacher looking at you sideways, you getting that F. It might be an F plus. You gonna get that F. Your girl ain't your girl no more. Everybody dogs you out, but everybody all of a sudden forgets that there was 10 other people on the field with you. They only looking at me because I'm the quarterback. They forgot that I was playing with 10 other people. They put all the onus on me. And so it's that same mentality is, don't forget, like, hey, there's a lot of other stuff that went into the situation. Just let the facts come out and be the facts. And then after that, we'll talk about it. I don't mind calling people to the carpet on it, but just realize there's a long time that goes into it. And the last thing I want to say too is that anytime a use of force happens, a shooting happens, people from the community or people in general want this person to be prosecuted like tomorrow. Like, hey, shooting happened on Friday. This fool better be guilty on Sunday. It don't happen like that. And I think they want officers to roast on the stake in 2 days after the shooting, when that's not even possible. Whereas you look at any type of criminal that's done a homicide or anything, those cases take so long to prosecute, years sometimes. So how should it be any different for a police officer when it's tried as a criminal case? And going back to the media again, when that officer is prosecuted, because prosecutions happen all the time and verdicts are rendered all the time, guilty verdicts are rendered all the time, we will not see it on TV because it's just not going to sell. It's not that popular at that point in time. Anything on that, Grandpa?
Yeah.
No.
Hey, he's just like a grumpy old grandpa. Nope.
Nope. Something else that I do want to get out there for the listeners is you have to remind yourself that the video is exactly that. It's just the video. You're only picking up what the camera sees, right? So we have intel going into a situation that, hey, this person is known to carry a gun in his right pocket. So if we run up, guy pulls himself away from us, I'm going to take you to the ground, right? You start rolling around, I'm going to make sure I'm conscious of your right pocket and where your hands are going, right? Another thing is you can't tell what's behind that camera, right? Like, is your entire family behind that camera running towards me? Is it a crowd of angry people because they see me wrestling around with one of their community members? Like, you have to take these things into consideration. So you cannot be more correct. Like,
I think one of the most recent, and it was hard because, I mean, it seemed like everything was there, all the information was there, all the facts were there, but most recently that what was the homeless guy that supposedly helped a lady with her car, and so then they had a huge GoFundMe fundraiser for them, and then now all this type of people donated. I mean, they bought him a house, supposedly bought him a house with this money. Come to find out, it was all fake. Like it wasn't even real, and I don't know what happened. I guess there's some.
And they raised like $400,000.
Yes, and I think the
AJ, is that why you asked me? Is that why you asked me, AJ, how to raise some money? I think AJ was trying to do something like that.
Yeah, I started to GoFundMe, kind of sick.
Well, and that's kind of the hard thing, with these on social media when you're trying to help people. What makes it a little bit harder, but it's so important to, just like everybody's saying. I don't want to sound like a broken record with you all, but I mean, it's so important to, when you hear information, educate yourself. Like it seems like people don't want to educate themselves anymore. They see something on Facebook or Instagram, like, share. They just see the head title. Yep, I hate cops, so I'm gonna like and share that one. Or yep, I hate thugs. Like and share that one. When you didn't even read that the article was from 2002.
And that goes two ways. And I'll stand up here and say, and this is not me endorsing one thing or the other. And when I'm gonna bring it up to the Thin Blue Line and the Black Lives Matter movement, and everybody was, either really hard on Thin Blue Line, like, hey, or all Blue Lives Matter, and then hard on, hey, Black Lives Matter. And I actually, for me, going back to the media will put out what they know is going to sell. So I know there from the Black Lives Matter movement, were some legitimate issues that they raised. Not gonna sit here and deny that. There were some legitimate issues that they brought up and raised. However, the only thing we saw in the media was all these people breaking cars down, breaking windows down, going in the store, looting, because to the media, that's gonna sell. They want to portray a certain way, an image of an organization, and it's the same thing for the Thin Blue Line. Is all they're gonna show is these crooked cops and all this stuff. It's his brotherhood. So I had to take an unbiased look at both that situation and say, okay, let me put myself in the middle. Can I see both sides? And I think that's what we have to do as good-hearted people, is say, can I see both sides of it? And I think sometimes people get caught up in not being able to see both sides of it. And that's what's hard sometimes, is like, and so all of our listeners that do have a good heart out there, I know there's some that are out there listening to us. Please, anytime you see something, just get context about the overall situation. And if you're not a police officer, if you have a phone that has a camera on it, which is 100% of the population now, please don't go out there and start trying to stir up stuff, because it happens. I'm sure the three of you guys can relate. There have been times where I've been on a stop and people will, just for the sake of it, come up and put a phone right in my face, just trying to get a rise out of me. Not because they sincerely think that I'm going to kill them, I'm going to hurt somebody, and they're afraid and they want to capture it. Because I understand that sometimes people say, hey, no, just in the event that you guys try to do something, whatever, yada, 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 whatever. But there are some people that really are just trying to get a rise out of me because they want to post to World Star or they want to post to Instagram, and they want that video to be the next one to go viral. And so they can care less about the legitimate police issues out there that are arising. They can care less about the actual issues with the society or anything like that. All they want is they want a video to go viral. And so, unfortunately, we have to check our hearts. And I want our listeners out there, just check your heart sometimes. It's all cool for videos to go viral, but if you truly want things to change, look at both sides. That's what it comes down to. Don't be so caught up in trying to get a video to go viral, because you're actually contributing to the negativity that's already out there, as opposed to trying to really break down these bridges and break down these barriers like we all talk about. So anything else on that, fellas? I think that's a really good discussion, and a lot of meat in that. I mean, we could talk for hours about this topic.
Oh, for sure. Daniels?
No, I agree 100%.
I'm just mesmerized by Daniels right now. He's just like,
I can't stop looking at him, man. I'm just like,
hey, look at his aura. Look at his aura. It's glowing.
He got an aura, a whole aura.
He got somebody fanning him right now, feeding him grapes. Oh man. Well, hey, with that being said, fellas, before we move forward to the end of our podcast, this podcast is being brought to you guys by the one and only Breaking Barriers United. Out there trying to change the game, humanizing the badge, is out there doing good work. Oh no, it's a Popo, Square One. All of you guys doing great work out there. These are all organizations pulling together for the right cause. So we really appreciate that. Do want to give a shout out to all of our listeners. Our downloads have gone through the roof. It's been crazy. Daniel's put me on the map single-handedly. Thanks, baby.
Oh, my.
I went from 1 like to 2 shares overnight. Bam. Bam, dropped the mic. Walked to my wife and said, "Hey, baby, I'm your superhero now." So, anyways, so that's who this podcast is being brought to you guys by. And then, without any further ado, let's move forward to the interrogation room. So, you have any questions, AJ? You got any questions? I know I got a lot of questions when I put up that post yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a question. It's kind of long, so I'm going to try to wrap it up, so bear with me here. But it's from a good friend of mine, Bill. And he asked, where do you see the profession of law enforcement in 5 to 10 years from now? He goes, every generation has something that changes the profession. One generation was the Rodney King incident. What do you see our incident being, and how will it affect law enforcement? Daniels, go.
Wow.
I think the pendulum swings. So, I don't know how much further it can go, but I do think, people are slowly seeing that things are one-sided. Everything we've talked about, that, not because we're smarter than anybody or anything like that, but because we do have a different perspective and we do know that there's 2 sides to every story. People are starting to see that. And I don't, when was the last... I know that the security guard shooting with the active shooter, that's been a pretty big story. But it used to feel like, a year or 2 ago, every other day it was an officer-involved shooting story, and everybody hated cops. And I feel like the pendulum's swinging back. And as far as like actually knowing what this is going to look like in a couple of years, yeah, if I had that ability, I would probably not be on this podcast, and I'd be somewhere in like Cancun, drinking margaritas.
He failed to mention he's in Bahamas right now, though. So,
oh yeah, coming to you live.
I mean, it's hard. I certainly hope that stuff like this that we're doing and what other nonprofits are doing and individuals are doing play a role, and that it's more positive than it has been the last couple of years. I think police departments are going to continue to be on social media and connecting. I know we didn't touch on this, and this is a whole other topic, but all the people who think that, police departments, as from a community standpoint, there are a lot of people who think it's all staged, and I don't care how many black kids you take a picture with, you're still the same dirty cop, right? And they didn't
started.
Yeah, so that's a whole other topic. But I do think that a lot of positivity comes from more positivity than negative comes from cops as individuals and departments utilizing social media. It's very positive, and I hope and I pray, and the reason why I continue to do this is because I do think it's going to help that pendulum swing back to a place where we need to see ourselves.
Hey, you know, Daniels, you brought up something that's super, super important, and you get, again, this is a topic for another day. Maybe we'll talk about it, but I do want to briefly bring this up. I work with a lot of white officers, many of which have become really, really good friends of mine. Now, before law enforcement, most of my friends I have friends from all different nationalities because I went to college and met people from all over the world, but majority of my best friends are all black. Coming into law enforcement, a lot of my friends are white. It is what it is. The profession is predominantly Caucasian. It is what it is. But some of those guys, a lot of those guys have become really, really good friends of mine. I've seen those guys go out and take pictures with not just black kids, but Hispanic kids, white kids, you name it. And they do it not because they're trying to show an image of, hey, the police like black kids or the police like white kids. They do it because they genuinely have a care for the community and the people that they serve. And I know that not because I saw the pictures that they took. I know that because I've been on calls where I've seen them do CPR on somebody that wasn't the same color of them. I've been on calls where we had to pull somebody out that was not the same color of them as them. And they didn't do it just because they received a paycheck at the end of the day. They did it because it was the right thing to do. And so
yeah.
I really want to touch on that topic, man. And I really do agree with what you're saying like that, because I think sometimes, unfortunately, people can say, hey, you know what? It's just another white cop taking a picture with a black kid because they're trying to improve their perception. It's not going to change anything.
Right.
It's hard. And in a sense, it's hard for you guys as as white police officers because people off the top just don't trust you. But it's also hard being black and being a police officer, and that's a whole nother discussion as well. And so that's a deep conversation that we'll talk, and actually kind of goes into my next question. But AJ, I know you wanted to say something on that.
Yeah, I was going to say what's funny about that is I've had people make comments on my photos like, oh, look at this white cop in the black community. I'm like,
brother,
hold up, brother.
Hold up, brother. Oh my goodness. AJ posted a picture of his folks. He was like, no, I'm going to show y'all.
Yeah, I'm going to show you. My grandma. Put her
Who
here.
came to your defense?
Hey, so I will say this on a serious note, with the question about where do I see law enforcement going and what's going to happen to cause it to go that direction. With all of the nonprofits out there, BBU doing amazing things out in Cali and on the West Coast, humanizing the badge, doing everything that they're doing, WIND doing everything they're doing. I will say this, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast, Daniels. I think that you have a huge role in policing that you don't quite understand, like the strength that you have. Like, I honestly think that you're changing the face of policing from both standpoints. From the officer standpoint, because police officers see the fun that you have with the job, and it allows them to bring their guard down a little bit. And then from a community standpoint, people see like the fun that you have in uniform, and it allows them to see police officers as humans. So I know you deal with a lot of crap doing what you do through social media and whatnot, but you got to keep it up, because what I see law enforcement going is in a positive direction. It's because of a lot of work that you're doing. So
yeah, I agree. Thanks. And I'm just starting to, I'm nowhere near these guys, y'all. So for our listeners out there, I'm still, the one living in a little shack and stuff. These guys are big time. So I had to go through all their agents and stuff like that to get a hold of these cats. But we made it, y'all. We here. But I actually
who's got the emblem on the wall? Like,
hey, bro, no, that's spray paint, bro. That's spray paint. That's like the Amazon dude. Y'all seen the Amazon picture dude before he blew up?
What kind of mic you talking into?
Right.
Hey, bro, this is just cardboard. I just painted it black.
Yeah. We ain't gonna talk about savages, Mike.
Hey, bro, fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. But yeah, seriously, man, I agree with what AJ just said. I truly believe, you're changing the game, and I think we've always accepted that responsibility. And that was what my point was. I've had some ignorant comments come through. Not a lot of them, but man, when I tell you that there's some ignorant comments that come through, oh man, maybe we might have a section to just call it ignorant comment.
Just read them like reading me tweets.
And I'm just gonna call it ignorant. I'm just gonna call it ignorant.
Look at this white cop with these black kids.
Ignorant. I'm gonna read one at the end of this because I know we got to wrap up for time. But anyways, last question for the interrogation room. And then this one's gonna go out to you, AJ. I have a question. Well, a couple. It's regarding the youth of the inner cities where you're taught as a child that it's us versus them. So us being community versus police, which creates this bigger gap. What can be done to reverse that way of thinking? What would you say to a kid from the hood that feels that because of where he or she is from, or the type of people in their environment, law enforcement is not an option? This is not to say that kids outside the inner city do not develop this anti-police sentiment, but in my opinion, it is more prevalent in the inner city from the jump. Thanks for that question. And basically, so essentially what he's saying is, obviously, living in the inner city, your family don't want you to become cops because you become one of them,
Right.
but if you still have the desire to become a cop, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm definitely a man of action. So I'll speak from experience. Like growing up in the inner city, the reason why I didn't like police officers, or the reason I felt I couldn't trust police officers, is because the majority of time when I seen them, they were in a authoritative role, right? Like they were taking one of my friends to jail, they were taking my dad to jail. Every time I turned on the TV, I seen something negative, right? Like they were beating someone up, and whether that was true or not, like that's what was portrayed to me. Every time I turned on the radio, I heard F the police this, F the police that. So I couldn't help but grow up with that mentality, especially due to the fact that when I seen police officers in my community, I seen them in a negative light. But it took me to meet a police officer who showed me his human side that forever changed my life. So my answer to that question would be exactly that. When I go out into the inner city, I show them my human side, right? Like I show them, like, hey, nice pair of J's, right? Those are the 11s. Oh, I got them too, except my feet are a little bigger, so you can't rob me front, right? And I'll be like, right? Or, I'll see somebody playing curveball by themselves, and I'll get out the car and play curveball with them. And it just kind of shows them, like, you know what? Like, this cop is just like me. He's just wearing a uniform right now. So it helps break that negative stereotype. And it works both ways, Like I said about Daniels, a lot of police officers see actions like that from a police officer, and they think like, well, if he's doing it, I need to go out here and do that too. So, yeah, that's exactly it. It's definitely going to take time, but it's worth it. We're talking about a human life.
And you know what? I agree. And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen is that, because obviously I grew up not liking police officers like that or anything like that, but I think a lot of times kids in the inner city, they don't typically see somebody in a uniform that looks like them. Just when it comes down to what I mean, that looks like them. They don't see, some black officers or Hispanic officers, or they don't see, and not even just that, not even when we're talking to the color of the skin, but they don't see somebody that relates to them. Like you say, I wear J's. I like to, I'm trendy and all that other stuff. And so some of these kids, they don't see that. All they see is a badge sometimes, and they get confused and just automatically associate all of us in the same. And so I'm a firm believer that go be the change that you want to see. And I think a lot of people talk about it, but a lot of people aren't being about it, just flat out. And so you have anything on that one?
Yeah, because I think that kind of brings this whole podcast full circle, because obviously the conversation is about social media, and in the very beginning we start talking about different generations, and we have a generation of police officers now too that say, I'm not going to do social media, I shouldn't have to do that, they don't like it, but yet you want your community to change and do different things. That's the quote. If you do the same thing and expect a different result, it's insanity. That's the definition of insanity. And so if you're going to sit there and say, you know what, going back to, why don't you just go out there and arrest somebody? Well, you tell me what situation, what problem in this world we've ever had that arresting our way out of it actually helped it. Like, did we resolve any issues by trying to arrest our way out of it? No. So obviously, if we're not insane, we got to do something else to address this issue. And so I guarantee you, some of those conversations that we're having by going out and playing curveball, or going out and complimenting somebody's J's, Daniels, there are so many people that imitate and try to emulate the things that Daniels is doing, instead of just going out there and just being hateful. So if you want to see change, man, you have to. You have to be it. You have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to be vulnerable, which isn't easy. but you have to change yourself or change some of the things that you do in order to reach the people in your community because they need it. That's why people have such a negative view sometimes on law enforcement, because it's like, well, it ain't going to change, you know.
And cops know we don't like change. Cops do not like change. You talk about changing the toilet paper at the station, and the chief gonna have about 10 complaints. Like, what is this, 2-ply? I need 3-ply. This is ridiculous.
No, not even go as far as, so we're changing your car assignment. But wait a minute, I've been driving that patrol car, the same patrol car.
Wheels coming off and everything, and they still like, nope, you ain't changing my patrol car.
Nope.
Yeah. AJ, you got to ride solo today. What?
Exactly. And so, and that last point is like, I'm not here to say that police officers, you got to go out there and dance with people. I'm not sitting here to say, hey, you guys got to go out there and play curveball with people all the time. All I'm saying is don't hate on the guys that are doing it. Don't hate on it. Embrace the change. I respect what you do as an officer, but don't start disrespecting those that are doing it as well. So I think that's kind of wrap it up. And so to end this podcast, I want to end on a ignorant comment for the day. So
yes.
I won't call this person out, but just because I think sometimes people just think we making this stuff up. Like, folks are just ignorant.
Send it to AJ and me. We'll call them out.
I'll call them out.
Oh man. Some people just think we make this stuff up. So this was in response to one of our videos. It says, "Wow, thank you for stealing a product someone created and was going to sell to willing customers. You drove up the price of meth by confiscating it, and each gang and cartel will now use more violence to ensure their product stays safe because you make it impossible to have a legitimate business. Congratulations." And it's just talking about me talking about I confiscated or took some methamphetamine off the streets. so
how dare you? How dare you?
But this is the funniest part about the line, though. I don't think you guys got it. You drove up the price of meth by confiscating it, and each gang member and cartel will now have to use more violence to ensure their product stays safe.
So do you think he or she was mad because like now they gotta pay more, or like
my man was hot,
like,
bro.
where's his anger coming from?
My man was like, oh my
taking
goodness.
my meth off the street.
Taking my meth. It stays.
I was waiting on that.
Oh man. So before we get on too off topic, hey fellas, I definitely want to thank you guys for getting on this. Man, if you don't get that wax shirt up out my camera right now.
Oh wait.
But thanks for getting on this podcast tonight. Daniels, man, it was a pleasure having you on tonight, brother. We will definitely have to have you on again sometime. I hope you enjoyed it. And here goes Juan with his brand recognition stuff over here.
Good Addy.
That's fake wood.
We
just
ain't
so
get
y'all know.
ours yet.
Hey, that's fake wood, just so y'all know. That's that fake wood. That's that.
Where it's needed. Homeboy hookup.
Yeah.
He said it's needed.
Can I get the it needed homeboy hookup? I mean, and Daniels, I know you got some stuff to hook it up over here, bro. You now part of the It's Needed homeboy fam, so I'm gonna need some It's Needed homeboy hookups.
All of that.
You got it.
Oh, thanks again, fellas. I appreciate it. I hope every single one of you guys enjoy your Thanksgiving tomorrow. Don't eat up all the turkey. Don't start acting ignorant around your family.
Beans, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, waffle. You name it.
Hey, Savage, can you take us out on that note with I got greens, beans, potatoes? I'm going to need you to end us on that note. So thanks again, fellas, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.
Greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, raw, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkey, rat. Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, raw, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkey.